Welcome to this edition of Headlines. Frankie Darcell with you. Don't forget to go to my podcast often as you like at wdasfm.com. This edition of Headlines, talking with Democratic candidate for mayor Anthony Hardy Williams in the studio. You know, the last time you were here, it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
so we're glad to have you back.
I'm embarrassed.
Glad to have you back in the studio.
Yeah.
How are you?
Well,
a lot of things going on.
Yeah,
a lot we can talk about.
There's a lot.
I'll save the state stuff for later.
Yeah, based upon what we talked about offline, yes. Thank you.
I'll take that for later. Let's start by talking about this May 21st election, which is right around the corner. Yeah. It is no secret here in the city of Philadelphia that gun violence is on a rise, on an increase, and summer is upon us. Mm-hmm. What do you propose be done to curb or control the gun violence in the city of Philadelphia if elected mayor?
So some things have already done. So as a state senator, I created a program called deals with illegal guns in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. It's called the Illegal Gun Task Force, and this is about 15 years ago. $5 million to use state funds to go undercover to remove guns off the streets of Philadelphia. Under Tom Corbett, which was a Republican that was stopped for a few years now, under Tom Wolf, which reintroduced himself. So at state level, we're giving funds to the Philadelphia police.
Is it working?
No, it's not. I mean, it started, that's a part of it, but understand that's just one little part of it. The reality is that a few things. One, we should have long known that we were getting to this moment in Philadelphia. It's not like it shouldn't shock me that across this nation, young black men are losing their lives in record numbers to gun violence. Significantly poor folks in neighborhoods that are extremely violent. That said, Philadelphia is now on pace to surpass Chicago in terms of its homicide rate. So this should not have been a surprise. From my perspective, we should have long established, like we did with the opioid epidemic, that this is a crisis in America and certainly an emergency in Philadelphia. We should not accept the loss of this many lives and sort of just printing the newspaper. When children unfortunately lost their lives in Parkland, Florida, when Jewish folks lost their lives in a synagogue, we stopped. We took a moment, we paused, we reflected upon the individual. Since the mayor of Philadelphia has rolled out his plan to reduce violence in January, 100 people have died. I can guarantee you most people don't even know their names, but their grandmothers, fathers, and children. We sit right next to a city, New York City, which is using technology to track live shootings on an app that we could certainly do in Philadelphia.
If elected mayor, what would you do, or what would you do differently?
So, one, use some of the experience we've learned from the past. I lived through a period in Philadelphia where homicides by gangs was the highest in the nation before the Crips and Bloods. There was an organization called Crisis Intervention, which created Benny Swans and many others, Lance Nixon and Moms. And so they took gang members off the streets, hired them, and made them a part of the solution as opposed to the problem. We should be doing the same thing in Philadelphia. Taking a generation which is access to guns, making them part of a crisis center in each community across the city of Philadelphia. We should be funding these neighborhood organizations, Mothers in Charge and the like, Father's Day Rally. They have plans that we know have worked in the past. We should partner with them. We also should be using technology, and that means this generation has drones. This generation has apps. We can track where the violence is and deploy a police department. And most importantly, we need to state it as an emergency. And so, if I were mayor, we would have a declared emergency in Philadelphia as it relates to this, have a sustained campaign to reduce the level of violence using technology and using the experience that we know about in the past.
You have made no qualms about the fact that the soda tax has not been a benefit to the citizens in the city of Philadelphia. If elected mayor, would you revisit the soda tax at all?
So the soda tax is explaining to me that it was needed to fund pre-K and fund rebuild for recreation centers and a number of other things. The bonds for rebuild are let, so that will continue. The commitment to pre-K, if I were mayor of the city of Philadelphia, will continue. Understand something, we booked $360 million surplus this year. 4,000 children in pre-K is $19 million. We can afford to pay for pre-K. And in fact, we need about 17,000 kids in pre-K, universal pre-K across the city of Philadelphia, to put a dent in poverty and early learning. We can afford to do that out of the general fund. The soda tax is the most regressive, mean-spirited, tax I've ever seen in Philadelphia's history. Everybody knows openly that poor black and brown people primarily are ones who are being forced to pay for pre-K, not free, as well as people who live in other parts, center city, etc., doctors and lawyers, take their kids out of pre-K that are currently paying, re-enroll them in pre-K, and get it for free because they have the ability not only to travel outside the city and shop, but they also have the ability to put their child in a pre-K that allows them to get it for free. So from my perspective, it is very unfair, very hypocritical, and it's sustained for some very strange reasons.
Would you revisit
no, I'd repeal it.
No, I was going to say, and would you look to repeal
it doesn't need to exist. So yes, I would repeal it day one and go about the business of organizing the necessary growth for pre-K using the funds that we currently have.
All right. We spoke earlier about the opioid crisis. Are you in favor of safe injection centers and sites as we know them today, as they look to exist here in the city of Philadelphia?
I don't even understand why we're discussing it. It is a issue that we all know sounds, I guess, progressive, I guess. I'm not sure what the soundbite is. It's all political. The reality is that if you open a safe injection site in Philadelphia with a drug such as heroin or fentanyl, you cannot safely inject heroin. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is a federal crime to do such. So we'd be complicit as a city committing a federal crime. Places where there are safe injection sites, to the extent that anybody talks about them, are in other countries where the national government has recognized them and knows what the drug is and supplies that to be administered. We in Philadelphia are proposing to open a site which is illegal to do such in a place that is overwhelmed with all sorts of problems, and allow drug dealers to sort of hover around the building selling drugs to go in the building and suggesting that Narcan, which would revive you if you OD, is a way to get somebody off their addiction. We should be, as a city, a role model that says intervention, prevention, and aftercare. That means early life children understand what drugs are and understand the adults. Intervention, if you're an active addict, we should be working to get you removed from that. And three, when you decide to do that, we know you're probably going to fall off the wagon, be there. And the government should be leading in terms of doing it. That means as an employee of the city of Philadelphia, under this administration, because we do have addicts that are there scared to death of losing their jobs. You're not going to lose your job. And if you fall off the wagon once, twice, 3 times, as long as you're moving forward, we're going to support you to do that. It's very frustrating to suggest that we're doing something that relates to somebody's addiction when really all you're doing is extending their life, but you're not doing very much of anything at all to remove their addiction.
Senator Anthony Hardy Williams is my guest, also a Democratic candidate for mayor of the city of Philadelphia. He has an opportunity to explain to our audience why they should vote for you on May 21st.
Well, the moment I start talking, people say the politicians on the radio. So I get that people get very suspect of us talking. So let's do this. I'm a 62-year-old guy who is very fortunate. I have wonderful children. I have a grandson, parents alive, wife, who, runs me every day, right? And I have a great career. The reality is, I would tell you that I wish that things like poverty, after we'd spent $1 billion in terms of the budget, had been reduced. I wish I could tell you the city was clean and potholes were filled, but I can't tell you. I wish I could tell you that schools across the city were equitable in terms of delivering a quality education, but I can't tell you that. And certainly we talked about the level of violence, and I wish I could tell you gentrification was not scaring people in Philadelphia about losing their homes. If I could tell you any one of those things were better, I would not be presenting myself as a candidate for Philadelphia. But the truth is, that many issues that are problematic for a city tells you the city's not heading in the right direction. And by the way, if you're poor, or if you're black and brown, or if you're a woman, providing support for the family by herself, it is not only working not in the right direction, it's working against you. So I offer my candidacy. I will tell you that my principles have outweighed my logic because my commitment and a legacy of public service requires somebody to stand up and say, all is not well. The majority of Philadelphia needs somebody to push them forward, and hopefully my candidacy will be one that people look upon as moving them in the right direction in all these areas, and frankly, a number of others.
Yeah. Well, you're on inside politics. You're there. You're one of the political elite in the city of Philadelphia. You're a sitting state senator. Some of what you talked about, the potholes, the poverty rate, and the like, the gun violence. How much of that, being one of the politically elite from Philadelphia, do elected officials take responsibility for in terms of the current condition here in Philly?
So everybody should take responsibility for this. And I take mine. Now, the reality is I never considered myself a leader. I live in a row house on purpose in Southwest Philadelphia.
Elite political.
No, I'm not differing with your perspective because people look at us like that, right? But I intentionally operate in a certain space. trying to make sure I'm always present with everyday folks because that's the way I was raised. And there is a benefit to being an elected official in Philadelphia, so I don't want to suggest that you're absolutely wrong, but there's a requirement that
and power broker might be another word.
And
power brokers and decision makers.
Absolutely. And I think that, frankly, because we are so, and I hate to say it, we are so preoccupied with being peacocks as opposed to people. We operate in our own silos. We do individually good work, but frankly, collectively, we don't. I will tell you, for example, the mayor and I have not spoken in the last, I don't know, 2.5 years since I came out in opposition to the soda tax. Now, understand something. He's a mayor, I'm a state senator. We represent Philadelphia County. Our differences should be much of a less of a consideration. We should be interacting whether we disagree or agree, because it affects people across Philadelphia.
So, who should extend the olive branch?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say who already has, but they're sitting in a radio station with you. So that's happened on more than one occasion. So that being what it is.
Will the mayor not take your call?
I don't know. He's not on occasion, and frankly, he's been in my company, not spoken. Turned his back. Me, not me. Look, I'm a full-grown dude, so it doesn't bother me a bit. It bothers me in the context of other people are affected by it. I'm not connected.
There are people that have said this is the first time in the city of Philadelphia, really, where a sitting mayor, looking at a second term, has been challenged by 2 other Democrats. How do you feel, and what do you say to people who say maybe you should not have run this time, maybe at the end of the second term?
Well, by the time we in a second term, Philadelphia will not look like the Philadelphia you have. I'm proud of the neighborhood I grew up in, and I'm proud of the fact that African Americans have a major demographic population. And I love all my other brothers and sisters, but I'm proud of I come from a certain type of city. Philadelphia's not going to look like that in 4 years if you keep doing things you do. The murder rate will wipe away a generation. We will still lock up a generation. We also will probably gentrify people out of their home. We will also force people who are in public schools to graduate without the facility to get a real quality job. And so for all those issues, I think that it was a requirement from somebody to stand up, be they black, brown, or Jewish or Polish or Irish, to say, look, human beings all count, regardless of where they come from. And so from my standpoint, I offer my hat not because I have a personal disdain for the man. I just see things the way most of my neighbors see things and how they complain about these issues. And I'm pained by their circumstances. And so I hopefully offer solutions and things at my website, by the way, WilliamsIn2019.com. And I would hope to go get a fuller understanding of the plans that we have in place. So it's not just ideas, it's fully vetted plans that we're going to roll out.
I can say I asked the other candidates, or it came up in the conversation, and in the interest of fairness, I wanted to pose the same question to you. When we talk about the gun violence, you just mentioned that Philadelphia is on track to be in the same situation that Chicago has been in. How would you rate the current commissioner? And if elected mayor, do you see a change in that office?
Well, last time I talked about the mayor, I lost the race, so I'm not going to talk about the commissioner. I will say that we will have a very direct conversation about policy.
Are you comfortable with the direction of the department as it relates to the gun violence?
Well, I'm not comfortable with the outcome. Clearly. I'm not comfortable with the fact that we still have stop and frisk as a method to reduce violence, and it's not working. That people are being assaulted in a way they shouldn't. There are plans and there are tools which we've been used nationally. New York City, again, for example, does not use stop and frisk. Bigger city, safer city. And the reality is that we should be implementing things that we know work, but also recognize the dignity of individuals. And that doesn't mean people shouldn't get locked up if they commit a crime. I'm not that guy. I mean, if you did something wrong, there's no consequence. That's what I agree. Yeah. And that's what I believe today.
But as a city, too, in New York, they have very stiff gun laws that they implemented almost 10 years ago. That is a mandatory 3-year sentence just for being caught with a handgun. I don't know what the policy is specifically in the city of Philadelphia, but that was clearly a platform to change the crime rate in the city of New York. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the reality is that anybody who lives in New York City will tell you that they have really great laws as it relates to controlling guns, but they also have a problem with illegal guns as legal. Because we sit right next door to each other. Yeah. And they had an increase in the level of violence with gun shootings in New York City. So the gun laws certainly help, but it doesn't stop.
And I apologize for this, but the murder rate at this point is less in New York City with 5 million people in it, when you have just about an estimated 1.2 million in the city of Philadelphia. So they're doing something right.
In New York. Absolutely. So part of it is that they know where the shooting is occurring. They activate it so the police respond to it quickly, and those crisis centers that we talked about occur. I mean, think about this. When John Street was mayor, they had curfew centers because there was an outbreak of violence in those areas. They sent young people off those corners to a place that was constructed. We are X number of years past that administration. Now we have children that are 12 years old who are drug addicts, homeless. We have children who have behavioral health, parents with behavioral health issues. We have to have a wraparound entity that allows for the children and young people who are involved in this to recognize where they are. And we have the means, we have the revenue to do such. We have not spent the money in ways that we would think that Philadelphia should. Philadelphia is putting Band-Aids on issues that require major surgery.
Yeah. You know, I got to tell you, this is on a local, state, or federal level. I would love to see politicians, i.e. elected officials, raise money for community services like they do for their campaigns. When you talk about wraparound cities programs and the like that was around under the Honorable Mayor Street, to be able to reopen our recreation centers, to be able to raise that kind of fund, because we're on the crest of summer. What do we expect our children to do? Where do we expect them to go? And the city controls parks and recreation. We cannot continue to blame children for having nothing to do. The day of being able to play ball, when you and I, play kickball or maybe jacks on the porch and the like, what do we expect them to do? And that's not just a Philadelphia problem. It's a Detroit problem. It's a Chicago problem. But there are people who make budgetary decisions about what we do with our Department of Parks and Recreation. I would just like to see our elected officials raise money for those kind of initiatives, as they do for their campaign.
Yeah, so I'm
just saying. You just happen to be sitting here.
I'm okay with all that. But I'm also going to tell you this. When you book $360 million and you put it into a rainy day fund, and the things you just talked about are coming, I would think that it's not just raining, it's like flooding. Right? So why are we not spending that money in a way that we know makes a dent? Why are so many of these groups that you're talking about going without the money that we talked about spending? And so I believe that we have the means to do that. Whether I raise it or not, we have the money to do that. The question is why we're not doing it.
Why we're not doing it. Let everybody know your social media handles, how they can find out more about your campaign.
Again, Williams in 2019.com is the way you would go online and research me and find out more about me. I have a headquarters in Southwest Philadelphia on 52nd Street. And then you're going to catch me running through neighborhoods. We have motorcades going through neighborhoods every weekend, and probably will be going every night across the city of Philadelphia. So feel free to grab me out of a car or walking down your block. I want to be as accessible as possible before the campaign, during the campaign, and after the campaign.
All right. Thank you so much, State Senator Anthony Hardy Williams, also candidate for mayor of the city of Philadelphia. Good to have you in the studio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.